Thank you for coming to the second family engagement session. This one is specifically about career and internship success. I did get just one question emailed to me, so I do want to recognize that I did get your question. I'll keep admitting everyone. Thank you for joining on a Monday. Hopefully everyone had a great weekend enjoying the fall weather.
Hey, Laura, for some reason, there's still one person in the waiting room.
Yeah, it might just be a bad connection because I can't get them. Okay, so thank you again for being here. We are recording, so if you missed part of it or have bad connection, we will definitely get this information out tomorrow morning. We do try and send it to YouTube so that it could be closed caption for those who need that service. We also posted on the family weekend page just because that is a pre-existing page that we already have. So again, my name is Laura Crandall. I'm the Director of Student Involvement and Leadership. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am with Jennifer Fazio, who is the, I always mess up your exact title, but Internship Coordinator for Career Services.
It actually just got changed to, I think I've had 3 titles since I've been here in 2 years.
No wonder I don't always get it. Great.
The Employer Relations Coordinator.
That is right. I did know that. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Jennifer Fazio, our employment coordinator. Yes. And Debbie Cavaness, who is our alumni associate director. And together we will get started. Jennifer, if you want to introduce yourself, and while you're doing that, if you want to start setting up your screen.
Sure. Yeah, so let me go ahead and share. Does everybody see the PowerPoint? Yes, okay. So as Laura said, my name is Jennifer Fazio, and I am the Employer Relations Coordinator in Career Services. And so we're going to talk a little bit about career services and alumni relations. Let me just pull this over. Sorry if you see the side of my head, it's just the way my screens are set up. But we work very closely with alumni relations, and so Debbie Cavaness is going to be speaking at the end of the presentation as well. And so we'll go through some of the different resources and things that we offer, but feel free if you have questions. I'll have my email address. I can even type it into the chat, but you can also type questions in, and Laura can hopefully try to moderate that for us. But we'll just go ahead and get started. There's a lot of content here, but like I said, I'd be happy to follow up with you after, or if you have questions, you can email me directly. And so what I'm going to talk about, I'll go through who's in our office, what our staff is made up of, an overview of our services, some of the resources that we provide, and some key events and programs. So here's our office staff. There's 3 of us. So our boss, our director, John Turbyville, is also one of the 2 senior associate deans in the college. Casey Duffy is our career advisor. So she meets with students on a daily basis with resumes, cover letters, job searching, things like that. And then you'll see myself, Jennifer Fazio, and I'm the employer relations coordinator. So I work very closely with employers, alumni, and I coordinate our career and internship fairs and some other programs that we'll get into in a few minutes. So here's our kind of an overview statement, and I think really a lot of this is just to show you, we will meet students wherever they are. So, we are, here to help connect the dots from their first year all the way through their last and beyond. We're focused on helping students discover their passions, explore their options, build skills, and make connections. And so, a lot of times when students, especially first year students, it's a little intimidating to come into career services because students will be like, I don't even know what I want to do. I'm not sure if this is the right major for me. And so we really want students to feel like they can come in whether they have a plan or not. And so, especially students who really aren't sure, because we have a lot of programs that can help with that. And I'll talk about our alumni job shadow program in a little bit. But that's a program that we found a lot of our students are able to really draw connections to their field, and they're able to say, okay, this is really, I love what I'm doing. This is for me. So And we have other tools and resources to help students, kind of along that path as well. But we really want students to come in and see us. And we go into some classrooms now. Obviously, we're virtual, so it's a little different, but we try to go into classrooms and get out there so that people get to see who we are, see our faces, so that we don't look so intimidating. Once they meet with us, or once we go into classrooms, we tend to see an uptick in students coming to see us. So please encourage your students to come see us, make appointments, and I'll talk about how to do that in a second. So Handshake. If your student hasn't heard of Handshake, make sure you ask them, because this is one of the most important resources we offer. We share the system with Syracuse University. And so students will notice it's very SU branded, which is one of the caveats of sharing it with SU, but there's a lot of pros as well, because we get access to all of their jobs and internships that are getting posted in this system. Students can have access to their events. So there's several SU events that are run on a weekly basis, and our students can see them in the system. And so this is essentially our job and internship posting system, but there's so much more to it. So you'll see students can log in, they can book career advising appointments with us. Our schedules, both mine and Casey's, are in there through December. So students can go in and book appointments at any time of the day or night. We see appointments coming in, at night. Students will be like, oh, I really want to get my resume looked at tomorrow. And so they can book that at the convenience, of just a click of the computer. So it's kind of nice. Students can also search for internships and jobs. And we have over 1,000 internships and jobs in the system specific to ESF students, which is pretty cool. And there's different ways that we can work with students to find those. And so they can also, I'll talk about our career and internship fairs and some of the fairs that are coming up, but that's where they will find that information as well. So in 2 weeks, our career and internship fair will be happening, and SU is having several fairs as well. And ESF students can absolutely attend any of those fairs. So if they go into the system and they see that there's an employer coming to one of SU's fairs, they're more than welcome to go to that fair. And I encourage that for sure. So that's kind of the neat thing about sharing a system with them. And then there's also various resources like Going Global, which is a resource to help students apply to jobs and internships abroad. And there's some other, really cool tools in there, like the Big Interview, which is for students to gain some tips on interviewing. And so Handshake is really something that I encourage, and hopefully you can ask your student if they've heard of it or if they've been into the system, because there's a wealth of information in here. So here's the instructions to get into Handshake, and I won't go through all of it, but again, I would be happy to send this this slide to anyone who's interested, especially if your student's having any issues getting in. You'll see at the bottom, if students have questions, or if any of you have questions in general, we have a general career services email. It's careers@esf.edu. So we check that and monitor that daily. So, you feel free to email that address, or like I said, my email will be at the end of this presentation, and you can email me directly as well. But students will sign in with their SU Net ID and their password, and the Handshake will take them through a few questions to fill out their profile, and then they can get started. They can start using the system, searching for jobs and internships, signing up for events and things like that. Again, here's more information on how to make an appointment in Handshake. So students, if they want to meet with Casey or myself to go through a resume or to learn more about how to navigate a virtual career fair, they will go into Handshake and schedule the appointment. So they can sign right into the system, they can click the ESF Career Center, and then our schedules are in there. So students can easily make an appointment with us. Again, they can always email us as well if they're having issues with doing this. But it's been most students have really found it to be pretty intuitive. The nice thing too about the system is it sends students reminders. So prior to using a system like Handshake, students would miss their appointment if they signed up a couple weeks in advance, but the system will send them daily, like the day of and then the night before their appointment, so that we rarely have students miss their appointments, which is fantastic. So some of our additional resources that we provide, so our ESF career guide, and let me see if I can click on that. And can everybody see this? Is that see that? Okay. So this is a guide that we put together, and we have it so that students usually can pick it up hard copy, but it's also electronic, obviously, and even, during this semester, since we're mostly virtual, we send this to students all the time. But this has so much information for students. It kind of maps out your 4 years, what we recommend in terms of the job search. There's information in here on, how to job search, your elevator pitch if you're going to a career fair. We have several resume samples in here. So let me just scroll down. Like I said, there's a lot in here. So there's a first year resume sample, and then we have various samples depending on the student's department. So students can really go in and take a peek and see, how or what resume may fit what they're looking for. So this is something we use quite often with students when we're meeting with them during appointments and prior to, because it's a great way for students to kind of see how they need to prepare before coming to meet with us. So, okay, so that's our career guide. We also offer one-on-one appointments. And so right now it's mostly virtual. I should say we're all virtual. So students can still sign up with us the same way they would if it was an in-person appointment, but they go into Handshake and they can register for an appointment with us. And we do them via Zoom. So most students, it's been pretty fluid. There hasn't really been any issues with it so far, which is great. Students have kind of picked up on it pretty nicely. And so they can make appointments with us. And like I said, our schedules are in there through December. So please encourage them even just to meet with us. And, if they have questions or if they're interested in maybe a job shadow over the winter break, they can certainly make that appointment and we can chat about that. Our career services website, let me just click on this as well. So you'll see here, we've tried to make some updates to the website. It's not the best looking, I guess I would say, but there's a lot of information here. That there's a students button. So if you click on that as a student, this is again going to be an easy way for them to find out how to get to Handshake. This is our career guide. And then there's resources and tips, and we have all of the resume samples they can download right off of our website if they want to have some help with their resume. And so there's a lot on our website. I would certainly, encourage you to check it out and tell your students the same, because we have had a lot of students find some really good stuff on here. There's a lot on here, but again, we try to make it as easy as possible with hyperlinked to like some of our main resources like Handshake and things like that. So, okay. Our career services weekly update, that is something that we send out every Monday. And so that is a detailed email that goes out to all students that has information on our, if there's jobs and internships, if we're having an employer event on campus. There's a lot of information on that weekly update. And so I know students get so many emails, and I totally understand that, but I try to tell students to maybe create like a career services folder and drop these emails into that, because often, these emails are going to be job related, internship related. If students want to, get an internship or a job, which most do, or research, there's a lot of research opportunities as well. That's an email that you really want to check out. And like I said, that's filled with our, kind of our current and up-to-date events, and then things that are going to be happening within the next few weeks. And then our last bullet, our career services events. So we have various resources and things throughout the semester, which I'll talk about in a little bit, that we provide for students. So our ESF fairs. So coming up in 2 weeks, we have our graduate and professional school fair, which has over 85 graduate schools attending, which is our highest number ever. And I think because it's virtual. And again, you may think it's too early for students to start looking at that, but it doesn't hurt to even pop on, especially since it's virtual. There's a lot of schools in there, and students can check out, who's coming, what they recruit for, what they look for in students. So it's never too early to to check that out. The next fair here is the Career and Internship Fair, which is the fair that I oversee. And that's going to be Thursday, October 1st. From 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And that's virtual as well. And that's all run through Handshake. So students can get in, pre-register. So I guess my biggest piece of advice here for you is to make sure your student pre-registers, because in the past, students don't have to register for our fairs. They can just walk into the in-person events. But for virtual, they have to pre-register in order to sign up for a one-on-one or a group session with employers. So, the biggest thing I think with these fairs and what's kind of new and we're seeing some challenges is to get students into the system ahead of time to register. So, and again, same thing for the career and internship fair. It's never too early for students to start thinking about that. We do have first year students who are able to get internships, and in there a lot of the fall. In the fall, I should say, the employers are heavily recruiting for the spring for full-time and for internships. And so I think we have almost 60 employers signed up for that. It's only the second year that we've ever done a fall career fair, so that's exciting. We've always done a spring fair, which you see at the bottom. That's going to be held on Wednesday, February 24th. And so I don't know, that's TBD whether that will be in person or virtual, so I'm not really sure yet, but this is only our second year doing a fall fair, and it's been very successful for students, so they can kind of get going early with their job and internship search. So the Alumni Job Shadow Program, this is a program that I love. I used to work at SU years ago, and I ran the Job Shadow program there as well. And I just think it's such a fantastic program for students to connect with alumni. And you'll see here, this is where I really partner with Debbie and the folks in her office to get contact information with recent alumni. I typically target 10 years out so that students can have some kind of relatability when they go on these Job Shadow sites. But you'll see here, this was an alum at the Buffalo Sewer Authority. And so we had 3 students who went there, and the alums in the yellow jacket. But these students had a great experience. The alumni followed up with me, sent me this picture, and we see that pretty consistently. I had over 50 sites last winter break, which was amazing. And so students had an opportunity to sign up. It's over the winter break typically. And so it's, for the most part, it's a one-day experience or a half day. It really gives students kind of a flavor for what they could expect in their field. And so we've had students who are able to really make, a connection to say, this is what I would love to do. And they're shadowing an alum. So all of these, alum have been in their shoes at one point, which I think is also really powerful. And so you'll see some of the other organizations who have participated: Arcadis, which is an engineering company, AmeriCorps, Cicero Animal Clinic, the DEC, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and then the National Park Service. So most of them are located in New York. We try to kind of geographically pick locations where our students live or where they're going to be over the winter break. The EPA was down in Virginia, which actually I think I had sent 5 students there. So we try to make kind of a wide range of opportunities for all majors. And so students can, try to connect with them. But this has been a fantastic experience for students, and same for alumni. They've loved hosting our students. So we'll continue it again. I think this winter it's going to look different. It'll probably be a combination of virtual and maybe some in person, depending if, folks can socially distance and things like that. But I think that we may even get more opportunities just because, like we'll have an alum that's out in Colorado and not a lot of our students can get there. So maybe this year they could shadow them virtually, which would be pretty cool. So stay tuned. I will send more information out on this. Usually in early October, I start to send information out to students, and usually in November is when we match students with their site and they get that information before they leave for the break. Okay, so Career Fellowships is another program that's really unique and special. Casey Duffy is actually the person who oversees this program, but essentially it's a way that students can get financially supported through an unpaid internship or independent project that students are interested in doing. So essentially they fill out an application, and we're happy to walk you through that process. All of the information is on our website for these fellowships. But students can fill out an application to get grants and like funding to go do an experience. And again, this is another program where students have really had a phenomenal experience. You'll see a quote here. I not only learned skills and gained knowledge during my internship, I also made connections that will last a lifetime. This internship gave me the opportunity to make the connections I needed and will hopefully help me to have a leg up on others applying for my dream job. So, just one example, and we have some really great students can do these all over the country, all over the world. And so it just helps them to kind of get whether it be funding their travel, their plane expenses, or funding some of the materials they use during the fellowship. another great program. Please have your students check it out. This is how much money. So $268,752 have been awarded to students through the fellowship program. And it's from 2013 to 2020. So that's a pretty, high number. We're really proud of that. And there's a lot of hard work that goes into that, but, please encourage your students to check these out and to look into it because it's a fantastic resource. Some additional career events that we do throughout the year. So the Graduate and Professional School Series is usually done in the fall prior to the fair. And that just is students can, sign in. I think tomorrow is our last part of the series where it's it's a faculty panel. So students can learn about grad school, what to expect, and they can hear from different individuals that are going to present on that. We do a career development series in the spring, and that leads up to the career fair in the spring. And that is resume development, cover letter work, how to be successful at a career fair. And so we run those leading up to the February career fair. We host something called the Internship and Engagement Expo, which is a little different. It's actually peers. So it's students who have done an internship somewhere and they come and present to their peers. So essentially it's a little less intimidating. Students can walk around when it's done in person. And they can, kind of stop and chat with their peers to say, oh, you interned at the DEC. Tell me about your experience. How'd you get that internship? What did you do? And a lot of students will bring pictures and they'll bring their laptop, and they really get, that conversation is, it's pretty powerful for the students because they get to really just work with their peers. So it's a unique event, but it's been very well attended over the years and it's been really successful. And then lastly, we do employer information sessions. We do those throughout the fall and the spring. I actually just had a couple of virtual sessions last week, and we'll be having more because employers want to still try to engage with our students, even though it's virtual. And so we offer those, we send those out through email. Students can register. And again, it's typically either a Zoom, right now it's a Zoom or like a Microsoft Teams, where students can join and hear from employers and things like that. And also we host employer interviews on campus quite often. So both in the fall and the spring, employers will, connect with me and I set them up with interview space and students can interview right on campus, which is really nice and convenient for students. Here's our first destination survey infographics. These we hold near and dear to our hearts. They take a lot of time and effort, and I won't take the credit for this. My boss does a lot of the work on this, along with some of our work study students who collect data for us and analyze it. And one of our other colleagues in our office kind of put these fancy infographics together, but they're really, people love them. And if you want one of the infographics for, for whatever department kind of pertains to your student, I'm happy to send you that. These are from 2018. We actually have hot off the press data from 2019. I think we're just making a few edits to some of them before we actually send them out. But these are just kind of a neat way to see each department, where students are going, if they're going to grad school, if they're employed. And so it's kind of percentage wise shows you the employability of, the different departments and majors, which is pretty cool. And it also lists some of the employers where students go and some of the grad schools where students will go within that department. So people really love these. Again, I'd be happy to send you, some of these if you're interested in, I'd be happy to send them to you after this presentation. And I think that is the end of my portion. I know I said a lot of, I shared a lot of information, but again, I'd be happy to kind of go through anything else if there's questions. But I think at this point, I will turn it over to Debbie Cavanis in Alumni Relations.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen. So good evening, everybody. My name is Debbie Cavanis. I am the Director of Alumni Relations. And our office is one of those offices that I think students don't think about visiting until they're in their senior year and graduating. And then they think about us. But our students are alumni from day one, and we have a lot that we can offer them. One of the main things that we can offer them is 20,000 alumni. And our alumni are extremely committed to the college. They love to give back. So that's one thing that I really tell our students is to make those connections. So I have a couple of quick slides here. So we have alumni in all 50 states and over 100 foreign countries. So you can see from the map that they're pretty well spread out. The East Coast is extremely popular, but we go all the way over to Alaska and Hawaii. As I said, all 50 states are represented. You can go to the next slide, next two quickly. So we are, as I said, in over 100 foreign countries. And I think one thing that Jen mentioned is that people are used to being on Zoom. They're used to doing things over the internet. So that's actually going to help us more. I think students are more comfortable doing online meetings, and our alumni are certainly more used to it. So it's a connection that we can make maybe a little bit more easily outside of the United States and going into some of our other foreign countries that we have alumni in. So if you go to the next slide. So as Jen mentioned, our alumni are involved with connecting our alumni with our current students through the job shadow program, through the internship programs. But we also realize that not every student may be able to make that connection or be involved with one of those two. So we can do that on a personal level. So if your student is interested in speaking to an alum that's from their home state, that works in a specific field, that has a specific major and want to know maybe what they can do with that major, we can make that connection. So I always ask students, come and see us in the alumni office, email me. Everything will be on at the end, but it's a simple email, alumni@esf.edu. And we'll see if we can't connect them to somebody that can help them along their career path. And again, this is something that we encourage the students to do as freshmen and sophomore, not just as seniors. So you're building those connections throughout your 4 years at ESF. Jen, can you go to the next slide? Thanks. And another event that we do with Career Services, excuse me, is an alumni student networking connection. And this has held the evening before the spring career fair. So we bring in anywhere from 10 to 12 alumni. We have a social setting that their students come in, they're allowed to meet with the alumni, but they also pre-sign up based on the alum's background and a brief bio. So they will pre-sign up for either mock interviews or resume reviews. So it's a nice opportunity for them to get in front of somebody the day before the career fair, kind of go through their elevator pitch and their resume, make any corrections that they might need to, or any suggestions that the alum makes to the student. And then I think they're a little bit more comfortable going in the next day, you know, speaking to representatives from the various different companies that are there and talking about their skills and possible employment with the company. We also typically do a young alumni panel during the Alumni and Family Weekend, which unfortunately will not be doing this year. But it's a great opportunity for our current students to see recent alumni. Sometimes they're from they just graduated that year. So it's nice for students to be able to see that their counterparts are already in the field, already working. And it's a great opportunity for the students to connect with alumni that are young and active in their fields. Another event that we do is called our DEC Spring Event. So New York State DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, is a very big employer of our students. We have over, I think, 250 alumni that work for the DEC. So we bring, or not we, but we host an event down in Albany each year where DEC is headquartered. And Career Services brings down a group of students and they're allowed to, they go in and they meet with usually the commissioner of DEC comes in and speaks with them. There's a number of our alumni that take them around DEC and show them the different areas of what the organization does. And then there's a social aspect later that evening that allows for them to chit chat with the alumni on a more casual level. So that's something that hopefully if we aren't able to do that in person this spring, that we can certainly try and do that virtually and make those connections for our students. Next slide. Something else that the Alumni Association does that I don't know if all students are aware of is we have a couple of unique funding opportunities. So one that is coming up, and I believe either students got it tonight or they will get it tomorrow, is notification to apply for our alumni grants. So these are grants that we give out in the spring and the fall, depending if we have any funding left. Typically we give out anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 per year. And these are grants that are trying to help students do something outside of their program of study. Typically, we've had people doing research projects that they are doing just because they're interested in it and they're working with a faculty member and they may need supplies. So we've paid for supplies. We've also hosted students that were doing a science project. We've hosted students that were part of a national solar competition. So there's a number of different opportunities for students. Those applications, I believe, went out yesterday or today. I'm sorry, today or tomorrow. The deadline for that is October 16th. So there is a brief application that we ask them to fill out, a budget, and they do need a letter of support from a faculty member. We also have a number of other scholarships, the Alumni Memorial Scholarship, the Landberg Scholarship, and the Class of 51. Those are all in the spring. Only one are people invited to apply to. I'm sorry, two. So the Alumni Memorial Scholarship is open for application, and this gets a little confusing, but to the top 5% of students by major by year. So the top 5% of each major of sophomores are invited to apply. So that does the same for sophomores, juniors, and seniors as well. The Class of 51 scholarship is open to everybody. We really encourage students to apply for that one. We are especially looking for students that are working their way through college. They're funding a lot of their own. They're working, jobs during the summer. They're working work study. This is actually sponsored by the Class of 1951. We still have, I believe, 4 members from the Class of 51 that are on the selection committee each year. So they're always excited to see the student applications come through. And they've worked really hard to raise these funds. They've raised over, I believe, $260,000. And as I said, all of these scholarships are worth $1,000 or more. So again, make sure the students are seeing their emails. The only way that we can really reach out to them and notify them of these scholarships is via email. So make sure that they start checking their emails. As I said, usually it'll be in the beginning of February that we'll start putting out notifications for the Alumni Memorial Scholarship, the Landberg, and the Class of 51. So that was it on my end. As I said, we have both of our information up here for both Jen and myself and Casey over in Career Services. I know there were a couple of questions in the chat, so I think Laura might come back on. So we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, thank you so much to Debbie and Jennifer for being so helpful with everything y'all do. As you can tell, they're a very small staff and they do a lot. So, and I really have to say that they're very responsive. So I don't think intimidating has ever been a word I'd use. I know that the process might seem intimidating, but my favorite part of my job is when one student or a student goes in, talks to someone, and actually look at Debbie's son, who is an ESF alum. One thing led to another, and seeing the growth in Debbie's oldest son has been really rewarding and a highlight of our work. So without further ado, I'm going to start asking some questions in the order I received them. So this one's to you, Jennifer. When is the appropriate time to apply for internships?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say now, my short answer. So when I started here at ESF a couple years ago, we never had a fall career fair. And so I am a big advocate of starting sooner rather than later. And so I kind of brought the fall fair here because a lot of employers start recruiting as early as August, September. And so that's why we do our career fair in early October. Usually the first week in October, because a lot of employers want to get their talent solidified early, believe it or not. Now, that's not to say that you can't still apply to internships and jobs throughout the spring semester, because you absolutely can. Our spring career fair tends to be even larger. But I like to tell students, really start to look at that now, map that out, get a spreadsheet and start to, look at deadlines and look at application deadlines and start to kind of put your companies that you're interested in the application deadlines in that spreadsheet. So that way you're not going to miss, if you really want to work for, let's say, Arcadis, a lot of their hiring happens in the fall. So you don't want to miss that window. you don't want to miss a window of an internship or a job. So I would say it's more based on the company or the organization in terms of when they're going to start their recruiting, but a lot of times they start it in the fall for the spring, the following summer, or for full time in May and June. So I would say you start sooner than later.
Thank you so much. I know you did answer this a little bit, but can you talk again, just to be more clear on how does the ESF grant program for internships work?
So there is an online grant application so that students will fill that out. We say that it cannot be used for salary, but if a student has an internship and they need a hard hat or they need steel-toed work boots that they don't have the money for, you can always apply through a grant for that.
Okay, thank you. And I mean, some of the grant information, is it also appropriate that they just talk through it with a staff member before they go through the process of applying as well?
Yes, so I always encourage that because students may eliminate themselves when they shouldn't. If they ever have any questions, they can call our office, put our phone number on there, but Laura can throw it in the chat. Or they can email us at alumni@esf.edu. Now, these are just for the alumni grants that I'm talking about. I don't know if somebody was talking about the career fellowships, which are different. So that's not run through my office, that's run through Jen's office. So I don't know if they were referring to that as well in regards to internships, because those fellowships can be used to be paid for unpaid internships.
Correct. Yeah. So if students have questions about fellowships, I would email Casey Duffy directly. You'll see her email address right there. She oversees that program and knows all the ins and outs of it. She also walks students through the application process. There's, a few things that we need from them in terms of how, they can, their application and just different materials that they need to submit to be awarded the fellowship money. So, but I would go directly to Casey because she's really the person who you'd want to, ask your questions of and to get some insight into the fellowships for sure.
All right, thank you. And Casey is equally as warm and wonderful as Jennifer, of course. Just to confirm for a question, the ESF Career and Internship Fair for this fall is definitely online. And so there was a question about some majors and even job opportunities. So Jennifer, I have one specifically about bioprocess engineering or chemical engineering. Do you have a sense of, for this particular fall and even generalizing fall and spring, do you find that most majors or departments have some level of employers looking for them as well?
Yes, so especially within, you said it was at PBE, paper and bioprocess or chemical engineering?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that department specifically, I work with them quite a bit, but they have their own set of employers who come in because those students have to do an internship or a co-op essentially. And so they work with employers who recruit their students each semester. And so I do work with some of those employers as well. And there are some of those employers coming to our career fair. Cascade is one of our employer partners. I oversee an employer partnership program where employers, have access to just different services that we provide, and I connect them with students. So Cascade is one of our big employers, and they're a part of the chemical engineering department. Regeneron is another company who's coming to the career fair just off the top of my head. But they're within their department. If they're students who are in chemical engineering, they should also hear from folks in their department because they coordinate a lot of those internships and co-ops right through their department. So yeah, that's a good question.
Absolutely. And I know that some of the other departments like ERE has some employer relationships too, correct?
Yep, they do. They have an employer advisory committee. The dean of engineering, has some pretty strong connections with employers as well. And we all kind of work together as well. So I know a lot of the different employers who work with the various departments, but some of the departments also kind of have their own outreach, which is great.
Yes, it really is a nice community.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a couple of just quick questions again. Do you happen to know if Wegmans offers job shadow and internship opportunities?
So it's funny because um, currently not right now. So when I was at SU, Wegmans had a job shadow program. So I sent students to Wegmans when I was at SU, but I don't have that connection at ESF. So not right now. That's not to say that that can't change. I'm always open to building the program. Like I said, it's grown substantially even since I came. So we had over 50 sites. I guess it would be, I could talk to even Debbie to see if we have an alum that works there. And that's really where I could make that connection. And I'm happy to make that outreach if there's an interest in, a job shadow there for sure.
Thank you. I know I would love to, help out. I'm there almost every day, so.
Yeah, me too.
So the fall career fair, is that from 11 to 3? There's just a comment about if students have class, is there any other alternatives or options for that?
Yeah, so we face this each year, whether it's virtual or not. And so it's difficult for us to choose a time frame that's going to work for all students, because for the most part it doesn't, right? Students will either have class or something during that time. What I have recommended students do, I don't say to skip class, but you can talk to your faculty member and see, say there's a career fair coming up and I really want to get an internship over the summer. I really think this is vital to my success. Would it be okay if I attended? And most faculty are 100% fine with that. I mean, you might have to make up something, unless there's a test that day. But if you are back to back with classes all day, you can certainly at least try and ask your faculty member, in advance to see if you could, take some time to go. And most are, like I said, more than willing to allow students to do that. The sessions aren't going to be recorded, unfortunately. So if a student can't attend, but that's not to say that if they have a strong interest in one of the companies that I can't still set something up for them. So if, a student wants to, meet with the DEC, I have some really close contacts with all of these employers. And so I can always try to set something up outside of the career fair if it just doesn't work for the student.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. It is definitely hard to balance finding the perfect time.
Mm-hmm.
There is one more that I see, and then I don't have any other, I don't think, unanswered questions, but are there pre-med job shadow program available, locations available, pre-med?
I'd have to look back at my list. We may have had one, but that's not to say, so if there's an interest like at Upstate, I mean, we work closely with our partners at SUNY Upstate. So if students have, would like to shadow someone at Upstate, we can make that happen. I think that would be something we could easily make happen. I don't know if I had any pre-med. I know I had some different like law opportunities, but I'd have to look back if I had pre-med. I don't think so. But that's not to say, like I said, I'm happy to, make something work for a student if they're interested. We can try to make it happen.
All right, thank you. And one question did just come in after that. What internships would be a good fit for an environmental and safety major?
Well, I think that's going to really depend on what the student wants to do. I mean, we have a lot of, environmental and sustainability companies who are actually coming to the career fair. But I think it just depends. A lot of times when students ask, I like to know what they want to do. So if they have a specific interest, because some of the majors are a little bit more broad, which is a great thing. It leaves students kind of the flexibility to decide what they want to do. So I guess it depends on, what they want to do with that particular major. But we can, I mean, I'm almost certain, there's employers who are coming to the career fair that would have, those kinds of different internships and options for students. So not off the top of my head, but I would have to meet with the student and see what their interests are, and then we could go from there. I also have a lot of data that I can pull for where our graduates go. So that would be like, students can find job titles, they can see where students are going depending on their major. And I'm happy to, I've sent that to several students who have an interest, and it just helps you to kind of see what are people doing with my major, what are their job titles, and where are they working, what are the employers. And so I can easily pull that data as well.
Thank you so much. I guess a question for me is, I'm an ESF alum too, and I have a lot of close friends who are in the field doing great work. And I will say that alumni generally are very much wanting to give back. They all leave ESF loving it. Again, generalizing, but there is something about a lot of our fellow alumni call each other stumpies and swag in like the airport or whatever. There's a love and excitement. So one question I guess I would say is what role should the student advisor have with kind of looking at career goals as well as your office? Like what is the fine balance between working on that grooming of kind of interest and why you chose that specific major versus your role in your office? Like where should a student go who might be questioning, is this even the right major for me? This course isn't exciting me. Because I know that there's a lot of first year courses, for instance, that don't get them super excited because they're the entry level course like general biology, general chemistry, calculus. I mean, there's nothing that really necessarily gets you really excited to take those, you know, that passion might not happen till sophomore or junior year. So what's your best advice? Sorry to put you through the ringer with that question, Jen, but what's your best advice in that scenario?
Yeah, so I think you were starting off with, you know, should they go to their advisor or come to us? And I would say both. I mean, certainly tap into your advisor for sure because they, you know, have been doing it for a long time and they have connections as well, especially in the field. But come see us, absolutely. Casey or myself. I would be, you know, I think the more you get involved, I think the happier you will be in your major. And as Laura said, your first year or two, you're not really taking the classes that are major specific where you get super excited about what you're doing. And so if you can do a job shadow and you can do that your first year, or you can do, you know, you're able to obtain an internship, those are the kinds of experiences that will really be kind of like an aha moment. Like, this is why I'm doing, you know, this is why I'm going through these rigorous chem classes and, you know, taking bio. And I think students are able to connect the dots much more and be much more productive when they can go out and see, this is what it's going to be like when I graduate. You know, I can see now why I'm in this major because, you know, you're able to maybe do a job shadow and you're out in the field, or you're, you know, in a lab with an alum and you're able to get some of your questions answered and get that excitement. So I think that's a good point, Laura. I think, you know, the sooner you can get in and get involved and take advantage of some of the programs that we offer, I think, you know, that it's beneficial for the student for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you have any final thoughts too, Debbie? I know that, you know, again, not to call you up, but you were a parent of a current student who has now become an alum, but do you have any advice to give to our families as well, since you've been in a variety of hats during your X number of years at the college? I don't even know. I think I lost track of 17 years, but it's
I
probably
can't count that high anymore, Laura.
okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that's probably the same thing that they will hear over and over again. And Jen just hit on it. Get involved. There's so many different opportunities for students, not only through extracurricular activities and programs like that, but research and the job opportunities, the internship programs. I know you mentioned my son did a career fellowship. So he went to Chile and studied down in Chile. It was an independent research program. He studied with birds and mosses down in the Tierra del Fuego. You know, he had a great time. He really enjoyed it. It's not what he was going to do for a living. He came back. He worked for New York City for a little while, but the people from Chile called him and asked him to come back and work. So he went back down. So it opens up a lot of doors. Don't say no to things because it's not in your comfort zone. And I will say my son was a very quiet, very reserved. He came out of his shell at college. He did things that I never would have thought. And it was because of the support that the people in the different offices at the college give the students and their fellow students. So I will say just take advantage of everything they can and ask a lot of questions and use the resources that are available to them.
Thank you so much, Debbie. If are there any last minute questions, feel free to unmute and ask it out loud or put it in the chat box. So again, our contact information is on the screen. I can't reiterate enough everyone's comments to Debbie's and Jennifer's. We've all been in our roles, whether it's at ESF or other places, and we always encourage the student to be their own advocate, and again, getting out of their comfort zone, sending that first one email that says to a faculty member or their advisor or career service staff or whoever, hey, I'd like to know more about what you do. Applying to be something that maybe they didn't do in high school or their previous college, and just that one step, because that could lead to so many different pathways. That one phone call to an alumni person who is potentially in a field that they want to do, or that internship for a week or a summer that they found, okay, that is actually not what I want to do. That's sort of my story. And I got into higher education, and I have my master's at SU. So we also don't judge if someone leaves the field and goes into a different path. That's very common too. You know, just supporting your student, asking them, hey, maybe you should try to do one thing this month that you never thought you would do. So just to, again, push them a little bit, especially during COVID, and now they have more time to do a Zoom that's maybe less intimidating, where you only have to dress up from the top half, right? And you don't have to worry about the suit and the shoes and all of that. So whatever we can do to encourage even to have them just navigate the conversation, we're all there to help support them. So again, thank you so much. We are recording this. I still don't have any new questions coming in. That's totally okay. Again, you have our contact info. I will post this recording probably tomorrow when it does get closed caption on YouTube. And I will, I think it's okay if I post the PowerPoint, but I'll just confirm that that's okay. And we'll get this information out. And next week we are having a session, same time, same Zoom place, on Zoom at 7 p.m. on Monday. And this one specifically is about self-care and trends in college students. So it'll feature our counseling center staff, or counseling services staff. So if you have not registered, just make sure you register for that one. And if you have any questions in advance, just send them to me via email. If not, I want to thank again our panelists for being here and for being so informative and highlighting all the great work that they do to support our students at ESF. Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.